Today's studio guest is Aaron Webster, Global Chief Risk Officer with PayPal. Thank you so much for coming into us. Welcome back to Ireland and welcome to the studio.
And thanks so much for having me, and thanks to the Silicon Republic and the IDA for hosting me today.
Well, listen, you joined PayPal back in 2024, and you have a rather important role in that you oversee risk, I suppose, for PayPal globally.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about the role and why you chose to move to PayPal, and maybe a little bit about PayPal sort of globally.
Yeah, PayPal is one of the most iconic companies from a FinTech perspective. It invented person-to-person payments. We do that now across over 200 markets around the world. And with that comes incredible complexity of how you move $2 trillion of money around the world across our merchants as well as consumers. We have 430 million consumers that use our products and services every day, and 45 million merchants that use our products. So we are the most prolific two-sided network powering what is the lifeblood of many countries, which is their small business community, and then also unlocking the value of both consumers in their country as well as bringing cross-border consumers to those small businesses, whether it be in Ireland or anywhere in the world. Risk management is one of the key ways that we enable that to happen. If you think about just moving that scale of money around the world, there are bad actors out there that want a piece of that, whether it be fraud, people want to commit fraud, money laundering, buy things that they shouldn't buy. These are all the things that our risk management team stops from happening. At the same time, there's so many things our team enables. Frictionless experiences. When we know you, we trust you, we want that to be a seamless experience. And so the more that we know about you from an identity perspective, the more that we build personalized data experiences within the PayPal ecosystem, the easier we can make that for you to transact with PayPal, whether it's buying from a merchant in China or from Ireland or from the US or anywhere in the world.
And I must confess, being of a certain age, I have used PayPal all my life.
We love that.
It is interesting with other services. I would have used that tension, isn't it, between customer experience and security, and to get that right is quite challenging.
Absolutely. I think safety and trust is one of the most foundational elements of why people choose PayPal. It's because they are revealing one of the most personal details, which is information about their financial instruments and making a payment. And the way that we do that securely and safely gives people confidence to buy wherever they want to buy from. And the fact that we have a huge ecosystem of other value-added products that go along with it. Think about when you can't buy that television that you want to buy, but we offer things like buy now, pay later, and makes it easier for people to buy things that they need and still be able to do it in an affordable way. And so we unlock commerce more broadly, but at the same time, we do that in a way that's safe and secure and gives people confidence every day. And so it's one of our brand attributes that people love most about us around the world.
So tell us a little bit more then about the operations here in Ireland, and you had a big announcement there over the summer.
Ireland is a quintessential part of our PayPal family because it bridges our east and west. It's sort of perfectly located to allow our team members to interact with our teammates in Asia as well as our teammates in North America. We are so excited to further invest in Ireland. In partnership with the IDA, we recently announced earlier this summer over 100 new jobs, specifically moving up the value chain into data science and artificial intelligence. We announced a new global fraud data science and artificial intelligence center here. And the first 100 of those jobs are currently being recruited for, and we're excited to bring them on board here in Ireland to really be innovation incubators for supporting our global markets. We want to do our best work here in Ireland, and we think the talent pool is really exciting. We've spent time with MasterCard and with Microsoft and other sort of premier partners here, and just excited about what we're going to be able to achieve here as we go further and further into deeper quantitative jobs.
Fantastic. And I want to come back to that because I want to talk a little bit around talent and around the kind of technology that is affecting what you're doing. But I would also, before we go on, like to get to hear a little bit more about yourself,
Sure.
please. So would you mind telling us a bit about your journey to here and to, starting with PayPal in 2024?
Yeah, I grew up in the United States in a rural part of North Carolina, a small state on the eastern seaboard. Grew up with a family of six. I had two brothers and a sister, and working hard was part of what I did as I grew up. I had my first job at 14, I think, and haven't stopped working since. And so I've taken jobs in public safety. I've worked in financial institutions, and I went to college at the University of North Carolina. And part of that was hard work. While everyone else was out, enjoying holidays and spring breaks at the seashore, Aaron was like, "This is great. It's another week for me to work extra hours to pay for, what is a very expensive proposition, which is college." And, that sort of shaped me as a person as I went on then to work in financial services. I took a role outside of university from college recruiting into risk management. So I didn't even know what risk management was at the time, candidly, Ann. But they paid well, for the first job out of college. And as I started to go through and learn more about risk management, the things that we could do in terms of unlocking, risk in terms of protecting the company, but then also making the experience better for consumers. Because we did really exciting things like stop fraud, enable people to buy their first home, enable people to buy their first car. And so as I went through my career, one of the most important things for me was getting a diversity of skill set. And so I took lateral jobs so that I could get different types of experience. And then I also said, I want to do something I've never done before, which is have global experience. And so my time at GE Capital allowed me to live in the Czech Republic, allowed me to work in Romania, allowed me to work in Dubai and across Central Eastern Europe and the Middle East. And then moved on to Toyota and spent 10 years there working across the world, Asia, Pacific, and Latin America, and all points in between. So I got this tremendous global experience. And so I'm sort of the unlikely American that, grew up in a relatively modest surroundings, but then had the opportunity to sort of live and work all over the world. And it's been a phenomenal sort of experience for me to then build on making investments in places around the world as we've built risk management in Ireland and all these other places. Tapping into that talent ecosystem is what has been really important to me over the last few months, and sort of shaping my career as the next generation of leaders, the next generation of technologies and tools that allow risk professionals to win has been something I've been passionate about.
And you were part of SoFi, am I right,
I
before
was.
PayPal? Do you want to just tell me a little bit about that?
Yes.
Very interesting company.
SoFi was one of the most foundational experiences I had in the last few years. It gave me an opportunity to build something and build something at scale very quickly. When I joined the company, it was less than 1,000 people, really a single product company. We did student loan refinancing, but we had big ambitions. And over the course of my 5 years there, we became not just a public company. We became the fastest growing bank in the United States. We massively grew our footprint across all these different product and service. We did a few billion-dollar acquisitions along the way. So it was a time that was not only incredibly important for the foundation of the company, all of the risk capabilities that we built, but it really was, it sort of reinforced that risk is an enabler of the business rather than a constrictor of the business. And what I think, different from, prior large bank institutions, risk was always the one that say no. But at SoFi and now at PayPal, risk is really, how do you get to yes? What are the tools that you need? What are the controls that you need? What's the data that you need to be able to say yes? And so, SoFi was just a foundational part of who I am today, as I've continued to grow as a risk professional.
And was PayPal then an obvious progression then?
Yeah. PayPal has, the scale of what the company has, as we talked about a minute ago, is incredible. And just the sheer, the types of problems that we're solving at PayPal now because of that scale are amazing. And if I think about these, new data scientists that we're bringing in here in Ireland, the types of cool problems they're going to be able to solve, and thinking about all of the data elements across tens of billions of transactions that we do on a real-time basis, and being able to marry that with our two-sided network. What is a two-sided network? It means we have this massive ecosystem of consumers on one side and this massive ecosystem of merchants on the other side. Now, you think about like MasterCard and Visa, very interesting business models, but they only see like tokenized snippets of data, right? They knew that you bought something for $6 or €6 at this store. Whereas with PayPal, we actually know down to the SKU level what you bought and did it ship or not? And did you receive it or not? And oh, by the way, I can take that and actually be much more thoughtful about marketing to you and bringing you not just the products that you might want, but things that are actually relevant to you. I know that you like, sneakers and, size 38, and you like the color blue. I'm only going to show you those types of options when you land on one of our merchant websites. So I also think about the really cool thing that we're doing in this space is really democratizing these really expensive things to solve. So companies that are massive marketplace operators, and you know who those are really building like deep quantitative tools for themselves. They're really building personalization for themselves. PayPal has a unique value proposition. We actually are building it for all of the small businesses, all 45 million of them. And so being able to unlock that, deep quantitative data science in terms of personalization, agentic experiences, only PayPal can do that with our ecosystem, and leveraging the breadth of our products and services to help consumers then buy those products from the merchants.
And you're talking about some of those data roles and that, if we're looking at Ireland in particular, if you don't mind me asking you, what made you think that you'd get that talent in Ireland?
Yeah, we did our homework.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously spend a lot of time with the IDA talking about how we get access to that talent. We spent time with Microsoft here in Ireland, who we have a joint board member with. And so we also spent time this morning with MasterCard and talking about the ways that they build the talent ecosystem. Women in tech, women in finance, access to, externships as well as internships, and how do you build that pipeline of future talent, not just hiring incredibly experienced talent and competing, but also how do you then build the pipeline of talent? And so, we're making a bet here on, based on all the research that we did. We're really excited about it, and so we'll see. Hopefully we get the first 100 done, and we'll do another 100, and then we go from there.
Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit for Ireland.
I like it. And tell me then, the IDA, your experience of working with them, whether it be around talent or, research or whatever it may be. Tell us a little bit about the relationship to date.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked with the IDA since 2003. PayPal's been in Ireland for over 20 years. And so we have really gotten to know them well. And that relationship has evolved over time as we've moved from service experience type roles and now moving more and more into the quantitative deep data science type roles and artificial intelligence. And our needs are changing, right? Helping us get access to that talent is the number one thing that they're going to participate in, as well as helping us support and incubate that talent going forward. So we're excited about what we're doing with the IDA here.
Very good. And I've left this quite late in the interview, but one thing I do want to ask you, because you've had leadership roles in many organizations now at this stage, do you have a sort of a view of what a good leader looks like in your opinion?
Oh, well, I think, leaders have to be humble. And two of the sort of principles that I've taken away from different companies, and, I've worked at, startups that are moving fast and breaking glass, all the way through very traditional Japanese companies that quintessentially are very thoughtful and iterative and continuous improvement. And so taking away different aspects from all of those experiences, respect for people from my Japanese experience, like it's fundamental to who a leader has to be. Listen, help, support. You know, I work for all of my team. And I say that because my job as a leader is to help unlock resources for them, to unblock problems, to help them storyboard and communicate the work that they're doing and the impact that it has on the broader company. And then the second piece that I've taken away from my FinTech experience, and SoFi in particular, is this whole idea of a founder's mentality. And a founder's mentality is, you wake up every day and, it's not, your job is not narrow. When you're in a company, whether it be a small company or a large company, if you see something, say something. And you run after that problem just as hard as, if you're a founder that's a, seed company that's trying to make payroll that week, and you see, $100 or 100 euros on the floor, you're going to pick it up. And what I think sometimes these large companies forget is they're not founders anymore. And there's not that passion, and there's not that, oh, we'll get it done tomorrow. And so we can't ever lose that zest and that zeitgeist of like, we've got to go passionately and with intensity every single day to solve problems. Even if they're not my problems to solve. If there's something in risk that's broken, I'm going to fix it. But if there's something that I see that's blocking the rest of our PayPal experience, I'm going to go and talk to the person that does own it and help them fix it. So those are my leadership lessons to live by.
I love that. I think we could work together.
Yeah.
Tell me then, we're in a world where technology is changing so quickly, and the whole AI revolution, or Gen AI in particular, I suppose, in the last few years. In what you do, in regulation and risk, in finance, what are the challenges that have come along with those changes? Sure. And the opportunities that have come up with those changes?
Yeah, I mean, one of our corporate philosophies and missions is to work the customer back, which means making that customer experience ever better every day. And AI has allowed us to do that. If you think about our ability to provide service, that used to mean you had to call a contact center and you had to talk to someone after sitting on hold, and we then solve your problem. And we only do it between 8 and 5 p.m. It's very limiting. Now with our Gen A technologies and our PayPal Assistant, you can do that 24 hours a day. And you could do it, virtually. You could do it by text. Like, the possibilities are limitless. And before, like, evolution of Gen AI and sort of the tooling behind the scenes, it was much more mechanical. You had to ask the chat agent something very specific in the right syntax, and then you might get a response, like a search response.
Yeah.
But now we've actually been able to embed execution inside of those experiences. And so you could say, I want to dispute this transaction. And it'll actually guide you through that process and do it in a natural language way. And so it's really changing the way that we, provide service, but then also opportunistically, I talked about a moment ago, like how it's changing the way that we personalize the experience. And the more and more, people think about artificial intelligence and they think Gen AI. But there's so much more, like on the quantitative side, that we're able to do to improve things like the fraud experiences. The more that I know about you from all of the collection of literally billions of data points across our ecosystem every day, the better I can then personalize, whether it be reduce the amount of friction that we apply in the moments that matter, apply friction or restrictions when someone's trying to commit fraud, and how do we do that in a way that preserves the integrity of the account while also protecting the company from losses. So there's just a ton of things that are happening now, and we've really democratized AI for our team members, and now it's part of how we operate at PayPal. We've publicly talked about Perplexity and relationships that we have with OpenAI and others, and now it's part of our team member toolkit. We literally can go on and use that, whether it be summarizing emails or taking and summarizing meetings, not just, talking about it or reading about it, but actually using it in our day-to-day work is something very important.
And then if we're looking to the future, I suppose, what is the future mission for PayPal? And are there trends that you see coming down the line that, will be good or bad?
Yeah. We really think that agentic commerce is going to change the world. And if you think about, search and how search changed commerce, you go and you want to buy something, you type it in Google. Interesting. And now you get a page full of all these different things. You kind of have to search through it. Well, agentic commerce is the next leap forward. And it'll be iterative. There'll be pieces where it helps curate the right selection. And then the next step will be, you can embed it in a broader payment process and have an agent go out and actually find, buy, and have it delivered to you. And then, at some point when we get really confident, it will be things like, I want to go on a vacation to Ireland, plan my trip. These are the constraints. I want to spend X, 1,000 euros, and I want to stay in, Cork and Limerick and Dublin, and it goes and plans it out. Like, is that 5 years away? I don't know. Is it 3 years away? But I think that's going to be the place that PayPal is going to win next, is if you think about permissioning of those agents and, again, giving someone your trusted financial credentials and letting them transact on your behalf. What better partner to enable that than someone like PayPal that has your back every single time in every single payment? And so that's what I'm really excited about, as well as all the personalization work that we can do and unlocking, I think, small businesses in ways that no one else can. And the way that those small businesses are going to compete and win against those marketplaces is agentic, because companies like PayPal can make their product as relevant and as readily accessible as the marketplace offerings, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's the really cool thing about agentic as well, is it no longer is, how much you can spend in, AdWords, search, volume. It's now about, the product and the relevance and all the different other attributes, like, is it close to my house to reduce your, carbon emissions and things like that. So there's lots of cool stuff that we can do in this space. And we're just getting started.
I love it. I love it. Listen, thank you so much. That was fascinating. And thanks so much for coming into the studio. And it's lovely to have you here in Ireland. And we'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. And thanks to the IDA and Silicon Republic.